Hello and a very warm welcome to the Queen channel. Harry has officially left the UK for the US and now he's naming it his main country of residence. And the price that he has gotten for being a traitor is that Harry was in tears and angry, feeling like his father, King Charles, was taking revenge. Do not take your eyes off the screen for even a second because, friends, today we are sharing with you the tragic story of the stupidity of Harry and also his idiot wife. So will Meghan be smart enough to pull him back from this painful shock? According to the Immigration and Naturalization Act, if Harry decides to become a U.S. citizen, then he would have to relinquish his title or any form of nobility that he holds before he could possibly obtain U.S. citizenship. This is the only thing that actually makes him seem credible. In the U.S., that title is a source of income for both him and Meghan. So I'm just still not convinced that Harry is going to be willing to give up that title, even if it is in exchange for citizenship. Honestly, Harry didn't deserve the fame that he had in the first place. After he published that stupid book Spare, King Charles asked his son and daughter-in-law Meghan Markle to vacate Frogmore Cottage. So I think it's safe to say that the royal title he is showing is kind of fake at this point in time. You know, nothing lasts forever in this world, so let's see how long he can pretend to have any power. There are not so many people who know just how angry and upset Harry felt when he was kicked out of Frogmore. And is he going to wait until it's too late, or is he going to realize the error of his ways in time? It's not all that often that people get to see Harry completely broken down, but of course it happens. And I know he seems to be like a bad boy, but sometimes he feels a lot of pain too. How cruel, though. King Charles and the royal family punishing Harry. It's not cruel. Everything was over for them in England. If they want a home in the UK, they're going to have to buy a home for themselves, a private place. So Harry apparently was very upset, in tears, very angry because he was kicked out of Frogmore. He felt like his father didn't have the right to do that, and he was getting revenge. Harry simply did not understand that stepping down as a working royal would lead to the loss of his royal home. Instead, he pretended the act was cruel rejection from his father, King Charles. And the drama doesn't even end there. Apparently, during that whole ordeal, Harry was reminded of his parents' long, painful divorce. It seems like whenever Charles tries to put his foot down, Harry cries that it's so unfair. He feels like after everything that has happened to him, he should get whatever he wants, no matter what, no matter whether he's entitled to it or not. This also begs the question, who does he think he is, expecting to get to live in a luxurious residence on the grounds of Windsor Castle with 24-hour security paid for by the British taxpayers when he wasn't actually willing to undertake any public duties? They are so delusional. I swear the two of them live in a fantasy world. And why would William and Catherine want to have Harry and Meghan as neighbors? Harry and Meghan would be recording all kinds of stuff, making up all kinds of lies. Harry and Meghan's behavior was disgraceful and unforgivable. I'm talking about Oprah, Spare, the racism allegations, the lies, the anti-royalty interviews. So why should they be allowed to stay at Frogmore a few days a year whenever they come to the UK from California? Obviously, it would be a huge security risk to allow Harry to live on the grounds of Windsor. So maybe he should try to use what few brain cells he's got left in that ginger head before he starts firing missiles in the direction of his family. The royal family, and really everybody in the UK for that matter, are not going to take the risk. They're not going to allow Harry to come back in. He's a fox in the henhouse. He betrayed so many times. It wasn't just one single incident. So the trust in Harry is broken, and it probably will never come back. If Harry really wants to come back and live on the grounds of Windsor Castle, well, he needs to move back to the UK. I do wonder, though, if he can even respond. Does he even have the self-awareness necessary to reflect on his actions and think about how spiteful, how vindictive that book Spare was to his whole family? He's so spoiled, and I swear he has no common sense. Of course he was made to vacate Frogmore. It made no sense for him and Meghan to have a residence provided and cared for by the royal family, a home that he and Meghan were barely even going to be staying in, maybe a few days a year. What's next? The royal family supposed to pay their food bill, get them a Blue Apron subscription and pay for it? Who does Harry think he is, attacking his family like that, trashing them, throwing them under the bus, and he expects to be thanked for it? Why? Harry stabbed his family members in the back and then twisted the knife. So no, Harry doesn't deserve anything from the royals, and he wasn't really even evicted. That lease was set for renewal and he didn't renew it. So Charles decided to act like a king for once, and he let Harry know that he needed to move out. I guess, though, the king was supposed to just let him stay indefinitely? Well, maybe if Harry had not been so vicious towards his family members, then he would have been given some leeway. It just goes to show that Harry always wants what he cannot get. Harry rarely even comes to the UK anyway, and when he does, it's always a very quick visit. So why would he need Frogmore Cottage just sitting there empty? It's interesting to me how Harry has no problem with being vindictive to his family, but when he thinks the family is getting revenge against him, oh no, he's going to cry foul. I just don't understand, after everything Harry has said about his family, after everything he has done, how can he think that his father is being vindictive? I suspect that Spare was the final straw. Harry is also just so immature, he can't handle anything like a real man. Instead, he just pouts and cries like a little baby. I guess that's one thing that Harry and Meghan can bond over. They both just lose it when anything doesn't go their way and end up screaming and crying like the toddlers they are. If Harry really believed that his father was being so cruel and vindictive, then what did he think Spare was all about? It's about time that Harry learned to be independent. It's about time that Harry learned to pay his own way in the world. It really does tell us what their expectations were. They thought they were going to get a free home forever. And when it became obvious that they were not getting what Meghan wanted, well, it was time to walk away, and they certainly did that. In fact, they ran. And that's when Meghan decided that it was time to write a book. Oh, Harry, let's tell everybody how your family treated us and why we're leaving. Honestly, I think that she was hoping that the public would beg her to stay. How out of touch was she, though? Somehow, Meghan Markle truly believed that she and Harry were necessary for the survival of the monarchy. How delusional can they be? In fact, I'd say they did everybody a favor when they left. Instead of being all broken up over it, I think most Brits were just like, okay, goodbye, Harry and Meghan. Don't let the door hit your bum on the way out. As I recall, Frogmore Cottage also wasn't fancy enough for Meghan Markle. They wanted to live in a castle. So they demanded, and they got actually millions of pounds on renovations to Frogmore, and then they decided to pitch a fit and run away. So why on earth would Harry feel so hard done by and cry about it being taken away from them and put to better use, actually? It's time to grow up and face the facts, especially when he pretends that he's so concerned for actual homeless people in this world. I mean, can you imagine who would have been given entrance to Windsor Castle if Meghan Markle was living there? Oh my God, just imagine the security threat to the whole family. Now, I suspect that's why they were moved to Frogmore from Kensington, because of all the wild parties, all the random people who were showing up. Meghan Markle is a piece of trash, and you can just imagine what kind of people she'd want to invite over. And all of this started because the late Queen rightly omitted Harry and Meghan from the Christmas photo line in 2018. I mean, can you imagine everything that has happened just because those two didn't have their photos up there front and center? How ridiculous. Because let's remember, that line of photos was showing the direct heirs to the throne, and that was the only meaning behind it. She wasn't trying to exclude Harry and Meghan for no good reason, and he knew that, but he and Meghan insisted on making this big deal out of it as usual. Harry and Meghan just thrive on chaos and turmoil, and when there's not any to be found, oh, don't worry, they'll just make something up. Harry, though, has no right now to whine and cry about having Frogmore taken away. He wasn't even living there. He was sitting at home in Montecito, trashing his family from a distance and occasionally heading over to the US to fight these court cases. So the problem is, Harry needed a sane woman to marry him, a level-headed woman without her own agenda, somebody who could have encouraged him to grow up. So apparently Meghan whined that Frogmore Cottage was way too small for the two of them. But somehow, Catherine, William, and their two children found that it was enough. So okay then, Meghan, if it's too small, well, you're a talented actress. You can just take Harry to America and you can buy your own big house, big enough for the two of you. It's funny, isn't it, when we remember that Harry is supposedly this ex-army veteran who served 2 tours against enemies, and may have killed 25 of them from the comfort of an attack helicopter. Yet, when anything doesn't go his way, he cries like a little baby. To all ex-servicemen and servicewomen who may or may not have served on the front lines, I gotta say, thank you so much. I know that we enjoy the lives that we get to enjoy today because of you and your bravery. Saying thank you is also incredibly easy, I realize. There's just nothing else I can really do to let you know how much I value your efforts and your hardship. They really do mean something to most of us. And I recognize that many of you have gone through a lot of difficulty. And, I just want to recognize your efforts. I know it's probably not enough, but it's better than nothing, right? So to all of you, veterans or currently serving members, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service. Harry, though, well, no, of course, I'm not going to say thank you to Harry. There is nothing to say thank you for. He's just tried to trash his family for money, too, and that was his own decision. As a non-working royal, Harry gave up any right to the provision of anything from the state or even his family. He's the one who wanted to move, or maybe Meghan convinced him that they had to move, and they supposedly did it for privacy and because they wanted to be independent. Well, the first reason for privacy, of course, looks like it was a made-up reason, but anyway, after having been rather in awe of Harry since his association and marriage, I have become so incredibly disappointed that a son of Diana could act like that, could turn out to be the person that we see today. And the fact that he wants Britain to subsidize his life or his father or whatever, that just shows how lost he is. He needs to act like a man for once. He needs to take full responsibility for his own choices and not expect a bunch of handouts and favors all the time. I mean, even his title doesn't make sense at this point, and I cannot believe that he is still listed as a counselor of state. It's such a grave error. So Harry and Meghan are basically still living in La La Land. Nothing is ever their fault. Nothing is ever their responsibility. They never consider what anybody else may want or need. They never even listen to their own advice. They never help other people. They never invite others to anything because, of course, they're going to make it all about them. It's a very long list of everything that's wrong with them, but I think you get the point. Honestly, I think they both have a personality disorder, maybe different personality disorders. Meghan Markle obviously is a narcissist, and she could be a psychopath as well. And as for Harry, who knows? I guess he just fried his brain with all the drugs that he took. But it seems like they cannot anticipate the consequences of their actions and their words. I mean, honestly, how has Harry still not realized that the life that he wanted is not what he thought it would be? He's going to have to pay for himself, and that is not what he expected. But how? How could that be? Who is going to want to employ somebody like Harry, a middle-aged man with no idea about what it means to work for a living, and a wife who married him for fame and money and resents him for losing that? When it comes to Meghan Markle also, who does she think she is? She needs to get off that high horse. Considering her upbringing, I would think that she would have been fine staying in Frogmore Cottage, especially after they got $2.4 million to pay for its refurbishment. But nothing is good enough for her ego, no matter what it is. Even a place with 16 toilets can't satisfy the needs of Meghan Markle. So maybe she should consider earning some money first. What an idea! Neither of them has a job, though, and it seems like they just live off trashing the royals. And they live a billionaire lifestyle with all the private jet travel, the designer clothing. They are so entitled, but why? So Meghan Markle spent a lot of effort to get Harry. And I do think Meghan appreciated the idea of having an address that would show that she lived in a palace because she thought she was going to be like a Disney princess. But their address actually ended up being Nottingham Cottage. See, princesses in stories, they don't live in cottages. So she convinced Harry to ask if they could live in Windsor Castle. Well, that would be a great address for the wife of a prince. But unfortunately, the phrase "at Windsor," well, it wasn't good enough for Meghan. It includes many different properties, and the one they were given was Frogmore Cottage. Yet another cottage. Oh my God. She didn't marry a prince so that she could claim she lived in a cottage. Come on. I find it very hard to feel any sympathy for either of those two. I mean, they were raised in environments where clearly actions didn't have any consequences. Or if they did, well, there was always somebody to help out. Welcome to the real world. Harry and Meghan, you brought all this mess upon yourselves. And I do hope that Harry can grow up after things like this have happened. I mean, the cause of that anger and resentment is just that Harry doesn't understand that he has essentially been eliminated from his family. He's still got the title, sure, but the title is meaningless. And it's worthless. It's not worth anything at all. After all the damage he has done to the monarchy, no. So he should stop believing that if he's a royal, if he's the son of a king, he's going to always be automatically forgiven for anything. In fact, I think it works the opposite of what Harry believes. The more privilege a person is born into, the more they should be strict with themselves and act like good people to set a good example for others. Poor Harry, though, it looks like he's finally understanding that his father doesn't care all that much, his brother doesn't care all that much, he doesn't really have a homeland to return to, he doesn't have anybody to return to when Meghan finally dumps him. He has lost everything, but that's his own fault. He's not going to be allowed to keep a home owned by the British people and attack them every chance he gets. If Charles had not listened to his advisors, the public would have demanded that Frogmore be returned. They can buy their own home in the UK if they really want to live in the UK. He's wondering, I guess, if they did the right thing. Well, okay, they worked 56 days in the time they were paid royals, and they had everything handed to them on a silver platter. It seems like now, though, they are desperate to find work just to pay the bills, and now they have to sell jam and who knows what else. But Harry, if you want to find the source of your problems, look in the mirror. The only ones acting vindictive are you and Meghan. King Charles paid £32 million for that ridiculous wedding. He arranged for the gospel choir, and he walked Meghan about halfway down the aisle. And all he and Meghan did as a way to say thank you is trash the family, rob them, and tell lies about them just to make a quick buck. At this point, Harry is just a cautionary tale of what happens when you think you're better than your family, betray them. You're going to suffer a bitter end just like Harry. Interesting to me, too, how Harry seems to believe he's the only one who has feelings that could possibly be hurt. He forgot to mention how he ran his own father down to Oprah, claiming that he cut his allowance off. At the time, Charles was actually paying Harry and Meghan to live in America for an entire year, free of charge, and he was just wanting to see if Harry liked it there. Playing the victim is done, Harry. People are sick of it. The fact is, Harry is not emotionally mature enough to understand that other people do have feelings and that actually it's not always all about him. His entire life, Harry's behavior never really had any consequences. His bad behavior was always swept under the rug by the palace and the men in gray suits he's talked about. But now his bad behavior is obvious, is exposed for the whole world to see. He doesn't have any protection anymore. So he's going to have to learn some very hard lessons, like you do reap what you sow, and Harry, when you make your bed, you are expected to lie in it. Just a poor little rich boy acting like a spoiled brat, that's basically what's going on here. Telling anybody who will listen that his father, King Charles, is being so mean and vindictive. If anybody has been cruel and vindictive, it's certainly Harry and Meghan. The lies they told during that Oprah interview, and even since then. The lies, the vindictive BS, and spare too. Now though, when Harry gets a taste of his own medicine, he's going to cry about it. It really tells us what type of person he is, just not a very nice one. What did Harry think was going to be the outcome of all this? He and Meghan have done so much to try to damage the royal family, but they just thought nothing was going to happen as a result. A good example of some behavior of Harry's that is now being exposed when it was covered up before is the way that he treats those poor polo ponies. Now we're hearing all about how abusive he is. It's pretty obvious that good old Harry was never a real person. What we see now is what was covered up in the past by the palace. More and more, he uses that evil nature to do more horrible things to hurt other people. Obviously, the mask that Harry wore for most of his life has slipped, and I don't think he's going to be able to put it back on again. It is disappointing what he has turned into. He just threw away the love of his family and also the privileged lifestyle they gave him. This is the family who loved him, who took care of him, and look at what he did to them. This is the kind of behavior that we expect from naughty teenagers, not from men who should know better, who are nearly 40 years old. It shows that Harry is not very intelligent, and he also has a sense of self-importance that is outrageous. Somebody obviously got a little too big for their britches. Now, there are some other opinions, too, that are not all that different. Ginger's security was removed by Ravik. It wasn't the king. He doesn't have any say in these matters. Harry became a non-working royal, so like other non-working royals, he was not entitled to that level of security. The level that he thinks he should have. It is interesting how even the legal system agrees that this was done the right way. And as for Frogmore, well, the late Queen gave them the lease, not the freehold. When a lease comes to an end, it can be renewed or it can be removed. So King Charles decided to remove it because the two of them only spent a few days in it once they had decided to leave. So let's get this straight. The late Queen did not give them Frogmore Cottage. It was never actually in her power to do such a thing. All she could offer was a lease with defined end date, and that lease was not renewed. This is something landlords do all the time, and Meghan decided to run away because she wanted to live in Windsor Castle, and the Queen said, well, that's not going to happen. And then she was so shocked and horrified because, they were given this small cottage on the grounds. It was nowhere big enough for the two of them. Meghan Markle's ambition is out of this world. So Harry, you need to understand, whatever happens, happens. Harry stays in hotels when he comes to visit other countries, so he can do the same when and if he comes to visit Britain. Why didn't he stay with his cousins, Beatrice or Eugenie, when he comes to visit? Maybe he wasn't invited? Now, supposedly, he's got his good friends in Britain too, all living in big homes, so it should be easy for him to find a room to stay in. But again, maybe he's not been invited. Once all the court cases are finished, Harry is not going to have any reason to come to Britain anyway, so I think the problem will officially be solved. Harry, you need to realize, though, without the royal title, you're a nobody, and nobody feels sorry for you. Cry me a river. So maybe Harry will see this video, maybe he'll hear my advice. Forgiveness, though, doesn't have anything to do with it. The Crown Estate is responsible for administering the grace and favor real estate. All the Crown Estate throughout Britain, actually, not the monarch. The Queen paid Harry's lease as a wedding gift, but that wasn't good enough. Charles is not vindictive. He's not seeking revenge on Harry. All royal family members are expected to buy their own private properties, whether they're working royals or not, but not Harry. He has never bought his own place, even with all the millions he's always had access to. Frogmore Cottage was also meant to be a temporary solution because Harry and Meghan caused too many problems at Kensington Palace. And then they really messed up on the big apartment being prepared for them at Kensington. If Harry had married somebody who actually wanted to adapt, who wanted to take control of the responsibilities, then he would have been a full-time working royal with the planned big apartment in Kensington as his official residence. And he would have had a really impressive income to buy his own additional private property, maybe some type of countryside estate business like the other people have done. You can't get whatever you want for free just by being a member of the family. The free stuff comes from the taxpayers, and it's payment for working on royal duties. Otherwise, you are expected to find the money to buy or lease your own home. But Harry, of course, always has somebody to blame. He's nearly 40 years old now, and he still hasn't figured out there are consequences for our behavior. He was the one who stepped away from royal duties. He and Meghan ran off to LA, and they bought that ridiculous McMansion that looks like the Olive Garden. Frogmore Cottage came with a working royal job, and it was Harry's responsibility to take over paying the lease. People seem to forget that for a little while he sublet the property to Eugenie and Jack. Now, for normal people, that wouldn't even be legal. Once the lease expired, he had a couple of choices. He could renew the lease and pay the going rate, or he could relinquish it. Only Harry, though, would expect his father to renew and pay for the lease for him forever. I swear, though, only Harry is dumb and delusional enough to think that he could lie about his family in front of the entire world to Oprah and expect everybody to go the extra mile to help him out. So I'm pretty sure, though, that is what they expected. They expected the family to just do whatever to get them back, crying, "We can't manage without you. Please return. We will give you whatever you want." Obviously, it didn't happen like that. Well, friends, that's all of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I want to know what you think about this incident. Do you think that Harry is stupid? Is Meghan smart, or is she just on par with Harry? Please comment below. If you want us to explore any other topic when it comes to the royal family, please suggest it below to let us know. I hope the video above resonates with you, and don't forget to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Goodbye for now, and I'll be back to see you again soon in other videos on the Queen channel.